Welcome to Pixelated Audio, episode 14. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a very pink character that got his start in monochrome.
Welcome to another episode of Pixelated Audio, your bi-weekly video game music and retro gaming podcast. I'm Brian, and with me, as always, is James.
Hey, we've got some pretty iconic tracks from a game that debuted on Nintendo's 1989 handheld, but it's going to be a pretty fun and lighthearted episode.
Couldn't imagine a serious Kirby episode, after all, you know.
Yeah, me either.
Anyways, so yeah, the topic today is Kirby's Dream Land series on the Game Boy.
And to be a little bit more specific, it's Kirby's Dream Land and the direct sequel, Kirby's Dream Land 2. There's a lot of other titles in the series, but we felt that these two set Kirby off in an awesome direction. While they have a lot of differences, they really share a lot in common being on the same platform.
Right. Lots of differences, but lots of qualities they share. The first game is really important to me, and I have a really, really good memory with it, you know, and the music's always going to be forever embedded in my brain. The track we came in with was the title screen from Kirby's Dream Land 1, composed by Jun Ishikawa.
And I think it was such a great track to set this series off on a good start. Like, super fun and happy and just kind of really creative.
Yeah, very bubbly and just, like I was saying earlier, I just want to dive through a pool of popcorn when I hear it.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
No, yeah, and I feel like the music, actually, it seemed like a musical version of Kirby. Like, he's fun and round and silly, and the music really kind of felt like that.
And it's really cool because right when you turn on the Game Boy, there's almost no loading. You know, it brings up like a few logos and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, like the title screen, bam, and you get this this really just cheerful, happy track. And makes you, you know, want to start it up and see what you're going to experience.
Yeah, and I mean, and they have such great fun animations in these games. They just right from the start, it wasn't just like some really simple game. Like, they did a really good job, you know, putting together a great game that started off this new iconic series.
Right. So anyways, we have a lot to cover, but let's go ahead and get started with Kirby's Dream Land 1 and then move over to the sequel.
Kirby's Dream Land, or Hoshi no Kirby in Japan, was released for the Nintendo Game Boy in 1992, developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo.
Also released on the 3DS eShop in 2011. But let's quickly bring up HAL Laboratory, the company responsible for Kirby, Smash Bros., and the Mother series.
Good idea.
Yeah, so HAL Labs is a game developer that was founded in 1980 and started off doing titles for the MSX and the VIC-20, but later began developing strictly for Nintendo and its platforms.
The relationship between the two companies gets kind of complicated, but to put it short, Nintendo bailed HAL Labs out during a financial rough patch, and because of the support, HAL became almost like a member of the Nintendo family, even though the companies are financially independent from one another.
Right, and to go a step further with the relationship between the two companies, when this bailout occurred, Nintendo was like, okay, so we want you guys to make games for us, but the president of HAL was like, that's fine, but, you know, we'd like to see Satoru Iwata become the president of Nintendo. And this is interesting because if you know a little bit about Iwata, he got his career kicked off as a software engineer at HAL.
Yeah, and that's really cool. You know, there's a lot of company overlap. Oh, and by the way, HAL got its name simply because every letter in HAL is one letter before IBM, which is just really interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But anyways, back to Kirby.
So, to reiterate, Kirby's Dream Land was released in 1992 on the Game Boy. The game itself had mostly positive reviews, but was a major success for HAL Labs. And by 1995, it had sold 1.3 million copies worldwide.
Yeah, whether you liked it or not, it's been on several top Game Boy charts over its life. And I remember like every kid I knew that had a Game Boy in school had this game. Like everybody talked about it.
Right. Masahiro Sakurai was the game director, and you might know him from some other Kirby games as well as Smash Bros.
Yeah, he was also the designer for Meteos on the DS, which I couldn't put down for months. The game was so amazing.
Yeah, he was also the director of Kid Icarus Uprising, and I don't know why, but he also did some of the voices of King DeDeDe and a few Kirby games. But anyways, he said he wanted to create a game that even beginner players could play and make it all the way through.
Yeah, it wasn't a very challenging game at all, but even when I was like, I don't know, 10 or so, I think I played it again last week, and I don't know, it took me like maybe 30 minutes to beat. I'm not sure, but now that I think about it, it was probably something my parents got for my brother.
Yeah, I mean, he's a few years younger, so that's probably it. I always hated trading games with my brothers and stuff.
Yeah, we'd trade games all the time, so it's kind of like a communal thing, I guess.
Right.
Anyways, I think we should get into our first set of music.
All right, let's do it. The game was solely composed by Jun Ishikawa, who joined HAL Labs around 1991, but became a regular composer for the Kirby games over the years.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet lineup of titles he's worked on, like Kirby Superstar, Adventure, Air Ride, Canvas Curse, and so on.
Yeah, and we've got 3 tracks for this block to play here. So first up, we have Green Greens, Float Islands, and Bubbly Clouds.
That was Green Greens, Float Islands, and Bubbly Clouds, composed by Jun Ishikawa for Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy.
That first track, Green Greens, is so iconic. Like, it just, to me, that feels like, as soon as I hear it, that's Kirby.
More than the title screen or the anything else in the game. That's the song that I remember. Is a kid I always loved playing that level. I played it over and over, and especially if I had very limited time, like before like piano practice or like a soccer game or something before school even. I would just make it through that level and then like go off and do whatever I had to do. So limited time, limited battery power. So
right, yeah, and I mean for the first level, I mean because that was stage 1, it had such a noticeable sound, like that whistling is my favorite part of the track. It's just so bright and fun. And I mean, Kirby just set out on this whole adventure, so it just makes you feel like you're just right out of the gate having so much fun and just playing around with the float mechanics and sucking things up and stuff like that. It's just so fun. I could just sit there and like eat things all day with Kirby,
it's just a goofy, the whole soundtrack is just like this really whimsical, goofy, feel the whole way through, like the whole game. I mean, I feel like the game itself makes me feel like I should be like chasing butterflies or eating cupcakes all day, or it's just so it's funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think those things you listed, those are things that Kirby does in his spare time when he's not saving Dreamland.
Right.
Eating cupcakes all day.
And the syncopation in that track is really cool. There's a lot of stuff. The Game Boy only has a mono speaker, but if you listen through headphones as a kid, you get to hear the music in its entirety. It's really, really
rad.
I
mean, that stereo flutter that it kind of has, it was really cool. I really liked in that track.
Yeah, so that was stage 1. Float Islands, that's stage 3. I thought it was a really cool track. The noise channel there is really, really cool. It has the drum track basically is it keeps you moving forward. It feels like really floaty. I mean, it's called Float Islands, but you get the sense that you're kind of floating along, and I don't know, just really kind of light.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that can kind of be achieved a little bit with those really long trailing notes. It makes you feel like you're not like it kind of adds to that floaty mechanical feel, like Kirby's not coming down very fast, so the notes are not ending very quickly. So it's kind of like everything is just drawn out and you're going slower.
Right. It's a very hard thing to like sum up and like describe in words, but I got your drift there.
Well, I mean, and the titles for these tracks, I think, are named very well for the feel that they were going for. I mean, it definitely describes the level, but it also describes the sound, I think, too. Yeah,
and the next track, Bubbly Clouds, that's from stage 4. And again, just really light, kind of floaty, all the way through the track. It's nice. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and to me, even though I know the whole level is not an auto-scroller, I felt that the music had an auto-scroller feel to it. Like there wasn't a lot of highs and lows and ups and downs. It felt like it was very like pushing me forward throughout the level, like keep going and get to the end. Even though I know that it's a lot of games do that where they have the auto scrollers where it forces you to keep moving.
Yeah.
But for this, the music really made me feel like I want to keep going.
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. The game isn't known for its story though. In fact, I didn't really even remember there was a story until looking it up, but there is a reason behind the motive.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty common for a lot of early games.
I can probably sum it up in a sentence here. So King DeDeDe and his minions steal all of Dreamland's food and also this thing called the Sparkling Star, I guess that they use to harvest whatever it is they eat in Dreamland.
Right.
And so Kirby sets off to get it all back and teach King DeDeDe a lesson.
And as far as gameplay goes, it's a pretty simple 2D side-scrolling platformer, like many others from the 80s and 90s, where you move forward towards a goal while defeating enemies and avoiding obstacles.
Everyone knows Kirby, a very iconic character, but he still plays a little different than we know him today. He's a pink, puffy thing with nubby arms and tiny red feet. In this game, he can jump, duck, and fly around the viewable area of the screen by inflating himself, as well as inhale objects and enemies to spit them back out as a weapon. Overall, the game's got pretty tight controls.
Right, and unlike other platformers like Mario, for example, Kirby can't touch his enemies. He can't jump on them or anything like that. The real difference with Kirby, in this game specifically, is that he didn't yet have the ability to do the copycat moves.
But you are able to pick up a few items like spicy curry that allows you to spit fireballs, as well as a minty leaf that creates these quick puffs of air to destroy enemies or obstacles.
The game consists of 5 levels, each with a mid-boss and a final boss before you take on King DeDeDe. There's some pretty well-remembered levels, though, like Green Greens, that we played the music from a few minutes ago, that kind of paved the way for that Kirby motif that we've seen throughout other games.
Yeah, and after you get through all the stages, you actually have to take all the bosses on again prior to your battle with King DeDeDe.
And since it's on the original Game Boy, it's got that monotone color palette, but all the sprites and level design is really clear and clean.
Yeah, it's very easy to distinguish all of the components.
Yeah, and even for its simplicity, the polish is really well done, and the contrasts are properly utilized to make it very easy to see what's going on.
It's worth pointing out, too, that, the Game Boy only had a 160 by 144 resolution display, so there isn't much room to begin with. But I agree that everything fits well and it doesn't feel cluttered at all.
Right. Anyways, we got some more tracks to play, so let's get those going.
Yeah, we're going to start with Spicy Food Minty Leaf, and that's the power-up curry you can get. And then we're going to play boss music, and following that, we're going to play Mount DeDeDe, and then lastly, the ending music.
That was Spicy Food Minty Leaf, Boss, Mount DeDeDe, and the ending, composed by Jun Ishikawa for Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy.
All of those tracks are a lot different than the stage music that we heard before. A lot more up-tempo, a lot faster. I think that, Spicy Food Minty Leaf really was always kind of stressed me out because it's like that. I think you were saying earlier, like it has that Mario kind of.
Yeah, kind of like, Mario Star. Like it's the music is very recognizably different than the rest of the music in that level to kind of make it stand out, I think.
And it makes you get that feeling like, hey, this isn't going to last long, so I got to like use it while I have it kind of thing. So I like that track, so we had to throw it in there because it is kind of something that you'll hear every now and then in the game, and it changes everything else that's going on, whatever level you're in. So
yeah, and doesn't Kirby move a little differently when he's got that? Like he's like a little bit more in like a panic mode.
Yeah. When he eats the spicy curry, he's like his mouth is burning, and he's like throwing it. I mean, you see this in like Smash. It's like one of the things that comes back, and you see it a lot in Japanese games. They spicy curry,
Yeah.
It's always one of the power-ups.
They get extra animated.
Exactly. And then the Minty Leaf, too, is where he's like puffing out he's inflated and he's just puffing out constant air and, destroying stuff with that. I think those are with the auto-scroll levels usually.
Yeah.
But the next track, the boss music, is the first sense of kind of urgency that we get in the game. And we hear this against I think it's the Whispering Woods, that first boss, and all the other bosses think it's the same boss music. It's really cool, though. I get this kind of fluttering kind of feel. It's a very simple track,
right?
There's not a lot of stuff going. The bass kind of is the only tone that you're really hearing other than that fluttering. So it's kind of like dun dun dun.
Yeah, it has a little bit more of a, I mean, not dark, because none of the Kirby songs really get dark, but it has a little bit darker feel than the high floaty stuff. But and I think one of the things too that really amps up that intensity for it is that you're in such a small space. Like the level doesn't move around.
So
when you're
you
in the
just
boss.
have that Game Boy screen. That's it.
So you got to duck and dodge all in that same space.
Right. And then the next one on there is Mount DeDeDe. And that's probably the most hardcore Kirby gets.
Yeah.
That's a really, I like that track. I think that's probably my favorite track.
No, same here. When I first heard it, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Like this is like, don't mess with Kirby, like he's coming for you.
Yeah,
now.
It's not as iconic as like Green Greens, but it's still it's a cool track. Like I really dig it. I think it's really cool. The last one, the ending, it's weird. It's kind of contrary to what you would think of a normal ending. A lot of like ending music is very somber, slow. This is still pretty upbeat. It's, even though the credits are rolling, it's still very fun, lighthearted, and quick moving.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked about this block was that each song seemed to get a little bit more like, not really
edgy?
dark, but like edgy. And then the ending, it's kind of like back to this like super fun, like now it's over and you did it and now you're Kirby's friend and it's jumping around, and it's just such a great song. I think it really made the ending feel happy. Like, and sometimes when you beat a game, you're like, oh no, I beat it. Now there's nothing new to learn about it. And it kind of really felt rewarding, I think.
Yeah. And, Jun Ishikawa, he did a lot of really cool stuff with the limitations of the Game Boy. There's only 4 channels. Basically, like, kind of contrary to what people think, the Game Boy doesn't actually have its own individual sound chip. It actually has the main CPU that handles the sound routines as well as like the sound output. And I think that's what makes it interesting too. Actually, I studied a lot about this a long time ago. And do you mind if I get technical for a little bit?
Yeah, I think this is a good spot to kind of simplify it for everyone, and even for me.
Yeah, I don't want to overwhelm even myself too. So yeah, all right. So I'll put the tech docs in the show notes as well, just in case somebody is interested. I don't know, but for me, I'll put it in there.
Yeah, all right, that'll work. And I don't know, maybe we could do like a cool little live demo right here.
Yeah. Let me see what I got here. Let me fire it up real quick. So on this machine, I only have audio overload, I think, and that uses the Boycott Z80 core driver. I don't use it for Game Boy ripping or any kind of thing like that, but it's pretty good. So, okay, so the basics are, before I actually start the music, the basics are that this pseudo audio processing unit of the Game Boy, like I said, it doesn't have its own dedicated chip.
Right.
Anyways, it's consisted of 4 different channels. So like 4 different streams of audio can be played at a given time. The first 2 channels, let me go ahead and turn those on here. Let's see. So let's start off with none of the channels on. The first 2 channels are the pulse wave oscillators with volume envelopes. I believe one can do a sweep, which is that, pew kind of sound. And let me turn those on. Those are two of the same kind of channels, but they can be used differently. So those are both on now. And this is the first greens level. So it's something that, is kind of iconic. So we can hear that this is kind of playing the it's not playing the melody, but it's more of like the support role in what's going on. So the third channel is actually a programmable waveform channel that can be used to play back samples. And this is really cool because it's basically like a 4-bit sampler. It's really, really cool. So they can do, the composer can do a lot of different things with this channel. So let's go ahead and turn that on. You can kind of hear here how they use it in this track. So you can kind of get a sense of that third channel now. And then the last channel is actually the noise channel. And we see this a lot in like drums and stuff for the Game Boy. And it's used a lot. So let me go ahead and do that here. And so
you can hear that kick in.
Yeah. So I think it's really, really cool how even though the Game Boy is very simple, there's really a lot that the composer can do and kind of work with. They have those two pulse wave oscillators. So like you can kind of have that set for, kind of background kind of music and stuff. It doesn't have to be, the solo star and everything. But that third programmable waveform, they can just do whatever they want with it. It's really, really cool. And then the noise, that's always going to be your drum track. So I think it's pretty cool how the Game Boy sound format works. And and
I think that's a pretty good explanation to see like how the tracks are put together with the different volumes and the different specific things that each type of track can do to put all four of them together. So you can kind of get that variety and see how each composer can kind of play with them in a little bit of a different way.
Right.
So yeah, really despite the limitations of the hardware, there's really a lot programmers could do with it. I guess that's why it's so popular in the modern chiptune music.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Before moving over to Dreamland 2, since this is the first appearance of Kirby on any platform, I want to bring up a few things in his development, some really cool stuff.
Yeah, good call. I remember you telling me some stuff earlier.
So we were saying that Masahiro Sakurai created Kirby.
Right.
But Kirby, as we know him, like today, was originally just a placeholder sprite for the dev team called Po, which is why he's this ball-like shape with legs and eyes. But the dev team, especially Sakurai, ended up keeping the sprite as the final iteration because he thought it really served the character better.
I know that Sakurai wanted him to be pink, but I think Miyamoto wanted him to be yellow.
Yeah, and even the promotional art for the stuff in the States, like the box art, Kirby is white, which is most likely to reflect his in-game look of the Game Boy's black and white palette.
Yeah, it's crazy to look at Kirby on the box art now after we've seen him pink for so long.
It's cool how, at that time, they didn't expect the success of the franchise to boom like it did, so things were taken a lot more literal.
No kidding.
Also, Kirby's name isn't random either. I think it was on the Kirby Wikia page that said it actually comes from John Kirby, an American lawyer who defended Nintendo in the Universal versus Nintendo case of 1984.
Oh, yeah. That's right. The Donkey Kong versus King Kong likeness, right?
Exactly. But I think it's actually time to get over to Dreamland 2.
Kirby's Dream Land 2 was again published by Nintendo and developed by HAL Labs, released 3 years later in 1995 on the Game Boy, but also had some extra content for the Super Game Boy.
Yeah, and the Super Game Boy came out in 1994, so Nintendo was probably trying to push developers to do little extras in their projects. I actually just found one the other day at a Goodwill, but you actually had one growing up, right?
Yeah, I did. I still do, actually. But basically, it's just an adapter for the Game Boy, Game Boy games to be played on the Super NES. It didn't have full color palette or anything like that it added to the games, but you could change like the hue, and some games included like a wallpaper to replace the black bars since the Game Boy resolution was a lot smaller than the standard TV.
Okay, so the story for Dreamland 2 is that the rainbow bridges that connect the 7 islands have been stolen by dark matter. You're probably thinking it's King DeDeDe. Well, yes and no. It's DeDeDe, but he's possessed by dark matter, and his goal is conquering Dreamland.
So Kirby isn't actually alone this time. He's got 3 animal buddies that help him out while he travels to the different islands.
And in order to defeat dark matter, you have to have previously collected all 7 rainbow drops, 1 from each island. And when you do, Kirby gets the rainbow sword to separate King DeDeDe from dark matter. And after defeating dark matter, Kirby creates a new rainbow bridge restoring peace to Dreamland. Yay.
You explained that quite nicely, sir. Good job.
Thanks. And this is also the only game where dark matter is the main antagonist for what it's worth.
All right, so we have two new composers for this game, Hirokazu Ando and Tadashi Ikegami.
Ikegami worked at HAL Labs and is credited for sound work help on numerous games like Kirby's Pinball, Kirby's Nightmare in Dreamland, and Canvas Curse.
But Hirokazu Ando is more like Jun Ishikawa's other half.
Right, and they work together on most of HAL Labs' titles, but Ando is actually a very valuable asset and composer on his own.
This block, we're going to play 4 tracks. All are pretty short, but we'll start with the title theme. Following that, we'll have Grassland, Big Forest, and then the Red Canyon.
That was Title Theme, Grassland, Big Forest, and Red Canyon for Kirby's Dream Land 2 on the Game Boy, composed by Hirokazu Ando and Tadashi Ikegami.
Very cool. Like that, that title music, I like it, but it's not as memorable to me as the first one. I mean, obvious. Okay, so I didn't play Dreamland 2 as a kid. I only recently played it. I don't have the same nostalgia for it, so it doesn't have the. I mean, there's a lot of people that really, really like this game,
right? And
so for them hearing it, it's probably like, oh man, that's great. Like I love that track. I thought it was cool. I thought it has that same kind of really bubbly Kirby vibe. They nail it right on the title screen. So I like the track. It just doesn't have the same memorable feel to me as the other one.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I only played both of them recently. I never played them at either one of them as a kid, but I can definitely see how the Dreamland 1 had a little bit more of a feel that could stick in your head a little bit. But for that first theme song, I thought it had a little bit of a different feel than Dreamland 1. It wasn't quite as like crazy, like insanely bubbly. And to me, the type of a song, not necessarily the actual sound of the song, but the type of the song really reminded me a lot of like the Benny Hill theme song, like the, the running around. Like it just kind of like there was this endless kind of silly fun without being so like over the top, like silly. Yeah, I know. I see that. And the next track on there, Grassland, that's the first level, I believe, right? And so, or the first world that you play in. And, it's still it's a really cool track, but the thing that I noticed a lot that the other Kirby's have, the other Kirby game has a lot more like long drawn out notes, like more of a melody that you can kind of sing along with almost, like a children's sing along song almost. There's more variety in the notes, I think. Right. Yeah. But in this, it seems like they're, the composers are using a lot more staccatos and like very like, ta 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 ta, and all the notes are very distinguished on their own, but very separated. Right. And we didn't see that as much in the first one, even though it was the same. The pace is the same. It's still fast paced and kind of childlike, kind of happy fun, but it does have a different feel because of those staccatos, I think. Well, and I think that kind of matches with this game a little bit too. Like this game was a little bit more difficult than the first one. Like we mentioned, the first one was designed for anyone to beat. I really feel like this track was a little more like chill, kind of. It was a little more laid back to me. Right. And then the Big Forest, it's still just a really fast paced track. I don't remember the level that much. Do you happen to remember Big Forest? No, but I just remember that this track is super fast paced. To me, it felt like really like chaotic and kind of crazy compared to some of the other songs that we're used to hearing for Kirby. Right. And it's funny because like I recently just played this game too, all the way through. We both did. And I remember a lot of the levels, but for some reason, Big Forest, I just can't remember. The music is, it's okay. It's still doesn't have that thing that grabs me usually in a track, but I thought it was cool to add in here because of that fast paced thing. So I'm glad we picked that. The Red Canyon is probably my favorite in this block. I'd say it has the catchiest melody. I think that kind of describes it. I don't know. Do you agree with that? Yeah, and I think compared to Big Forest, it's another one that's more chill, kind of relaxed feeling, which I really liked. And it was more of a fun feel for me. So it was something that resonated a little bit more with me with Kirby. Yeah, and there's a lot more levels in this game. A lot more. So there's a lot more music to play and a lot more music to pick from. So we wanted to kind of play, like in the first block of our Kirby 1 area, we played a lot of level music, and that we kind of wanted to bring that into this too, into Kirby 2 as well. We wanted to show you show you guys some of the level music. If you played the game and you're very familiar with this, let us know in the comments. But I don't have a lot of experience with it other than just recently playing it. So let's talk about the gameplay and maybe what makes this game different than its predecessor. Yeah, so again, Kirby's run, jump, fly, and inhale mechanics are all still there. And like the previous game, it's a 2D platformer, but in Dreamland 2 is actually pretty long and difficult in some areas. Yeah, it's not crazy hard, but definitely more of a challenge than the first game. The world is set up different now too. The first game is more on rails, I guess, taking you directly to the next level. In Dreamland 2, you have a world map that you can jump back and forth between already beaten worlds, each with different doors on them. So where the first is more like Mario 1, this is a little bit more like Mario 3 in comparison. And once you beat a door, another one unlocks. So for those of you that have played a more recent Kirby's game, like, I don't know, Epic Yarn on the Wii, it's kind of like that. You can go back to the beaten worlds, but you don't get to choose what door opens up next.
But yeah, otherwise, very similar gameplay to Dreamland 1.
So the main difference is the addition of 3 animal buddies that Kirby can meet up with. There's Rick the hamster that Kirby can ride on. He runs a little faster and doesn't slip on ice. There's Coo the owl that can carry him, letting him fly everywhere, even the really windy areas, instead of his usual float mechanics. And Kine, the ocean sunfish, that Kirby rides in his mouth and can swim against the strong underwater currents. But yeah, he's pretty bad on land.
Yeah, I barely liked using him in the water. On land, it was a total waste of time.
I actually played a lot of the large platforming sections and auto-scrolling areas with him, and he's super slow for walking, but if you just jump everywhere, he's not too bad.
Yeah, when you partner up with one of these animals, the music switches over and plays their, I guess, respected theme songs. So next block, we're going to be playing Rick's theme, Coo's theme, and Kine's theme. Composers are Hirokazu Ando and Tadashi Ikegami.
You just heard Rick's theme, Coo's theme, and Kine's theme for Kirby's Dream Land 2 on the Game Boy.
These are fun, short tracks. You only hear these when you're riding one of the animals, or you're inside of one of the animals, or whatever it is. And you get to hear this no matter where you are on the stage, no matter what level. And so whatever music was playing prior to you getting one of these little buddies, the music totally switches over to this. So it's kind of cool. And it could last as long as you're riding him. So it's
I spent a lot of the game actually attached to one of the animals because of the extra damage that you could take on, because the animal actually took some damage. And,
there was a place, I forgot, there was one world that I think I played like 3 or 4 of the doors and went all the way through because like I was with Coo, I think, the bird.
Yeah.
And I inhaled the thunder ability or spark ability. And I was able to just kind of plow through all of those levels like real quick. Even the mini bosses that were in there, it was like they couldn't even touch me. So it was like I was like, man, am I cheating? Is this like okay to do? And
yeah,
it was cool.
Well, and that's actually one cool thing too to bring up real quickly is that all the animals, when you inhaled the same type of thing, they each did it a little bit differently. Like, so if you inhaled the spark one, like I think the hamster, he like kind of lights up kind of like Pikachu or something.
Right.
And then Ku actually shot a thunderbolt straight down.
Yeah.
And then Kine actually shoots like a light bulb out of his mouth, which kind of blows up.
That's right. That's right.
Cool.
I was like, what is he shooting out there? Yeah. Because you have to time it actually for like whoever's in front of you. If it's like somebody floating up and down, it's really hard to time out, but it's really cool. Rick's theme, I think this is kind of true with all of the themes of the animals, is that they all had a very distinct sound to me. And
right.
Like for me, Rick's theme especially had this very Latin sound. I got this really kind of Latin vibe from it. I don't know how
maybe like a silly, fun Latin, because I thought Rick's theme was very, very much, I felt would have fit very well into the first Dreamland game. It was very fun and kind of bubbly. And I mean, he's a silly little hamster, and it's really funny, especially when you're listening to that song and you think of, that cute little Kirby riding on the back of a hamster.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah. Anyways, Ku's theme, and see, this is where it kind of, they all have that feel to me, is that Ku's theme, so Rick's theme felt like that Latin influence. And then Ku's theme had that kind of Spanish flamenco feel to me. It felt like a little darker, a little faster, a little more, kind of sexy flamenco thing going on.
Yeah. I mean, he even looked a little bit darker, and he had a little bit of an angry look to him.
Yeah, he did look kind of pissed off.
So that song matched him a lot, I felt like, because the hamster Rick looked really fun, and then Ku looked a little bit more like dangerous, like, oh, I'm grabbing Kirby, and it kind of looks like he's flying away with you, like how an eagle catches a fish, but he's like your friend, so he's helping you out.
Right. And then Kine's theme, I got this kind of samba vibe from it. I got this really kind of long, drawn out notes. I just thought, I don't know, for me, it all had kind of a Spanish or Latin influence, and I thought it was cool.
And for Kine, he kind of looks like an idiot. Like, he just looks like a dumb fish with Kirby right in his mouth. So I thought,
like, his eyes are all cross-eyed, and you're like, this guy kicked in the head or something.
Yeah. And I thought the song to me was more simple than some of the other songs. It kind of go with his personality a little bit more, but I thought it was still really fun and silly, which was pretty cool to me.
Yeah, the game was an instant hit. I mean, lots of people really loved the game, and it sold over like 1 million units pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, and Nintendo Power listed it as its 10th best Game Boy / Game Boy Color game ever, like, and praising it for its abilities, the new ability actually to gain powers by eating enemies and taking it on.
Yeah, the game's also noted for being one of the hardest games to obtain completion, like a completion rating of 100%. It's really weird because when I played through it, there's a lot that I felt did I miss something? Like I felt there was a lot of things that I may have missed. Like, there's an area that I got to, and I saw an object that I couldn't quite get. I needed a certain ability to get there. And I realized, like, well, there's no going back at this point. I can't go back to this part through the level. So I'm going to just continue forward. And I go through the door and get to the boss, and I realized, wait, I missed that item. I don't know what it was. It was some shiny, twinkly star something.
Right. I mean, there's definitely areas where you haven't gotten Kine yet, but you're underwater and you're seeing like the strong current keeping you from getting stars and going into different doors. So you could kind of get Kine and then go back to the previous world and then go into the water. Like, you'd have to keep him with you and get back to that part. But there was definitely some backtracking feel for this game to definitely play it more and find more stuff. So I can totally see how this game would be really hard to collect everything.
Graphics are fairly similar to Kirby's Dream Land 1. Did anything stand out to you?
Well, the game has the same monotone color palette as the previous and looks just as clean and beautiful. It's well designed with a lot of stylized textures. And for me, I guess it feels like how movie historians view old black and white, James Stewart or Cary Grant or Grace Kelly movies. This game is definitely a classic masterpiece.
If you played the game on the Super Game Boy, the border or bezel or whatever had a pattern of the animal buddies. Now, I didn't actually check it out, but apparently on the Super Game Boy, each level got its own special color theme. Not full colors, obviously, but instead of like gray, the level would be yellow or green. Like I said, I didn't try it out, but I guess there were some other features like that. I can't be too sure, though.
It was also interesting to find out that this game was slotted to be remade for the Game Boy Color as Kirby's Dream Land 2 DX, but for whatever reason was canceled along with Metroid 2 Return of Samus DX. Thankfully, we didn't see that happen with Link's Awakening, but I mean, all three of those games together would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been way cool. The game was released on the 3DS in North America in 2013, which is how we both played it, actually.
Right.
And it's the first time I played it, like I said earlier, so it was good for me to be able to go back to the eShop and just pick it up and have a very easy, quick way to play it.
Yeah, same here.
I guess it was also part of the Kirby 20th anniversary Wii game.
And we've got one last block of tracks before we wrap up our Kirby episode, and we're pretty excited about them. We're going to play Boss Battle, Dark Castle, and end it off with the Staff Roll.
That was Boss Battle, Dark Castle, and the staff roll for Kirby's Dream Land 2 on the Game Boy, composed by Hirokazu Ando and Tadashi Ikegami.
For Boss Battle, I really like how it kind of switches back and forth between like intense and more intense, and then kind of back and
right.
forth. So
you got half intensity and then you got full intensity.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, it's still a lot of staccatos, a lot more bassy than some of the other tracks. And I think that's pretty cool. I mean, the bosses are a lot bigger, so they wanted to maybe use a lot more bass to kind of signify that, hey, don't mess around with these guys, even though they're super cute.
Yeah.
Anyways, the next track, Dark Castle, I think this might be my favorite track in the, other than Ku's theme. I think this might be my second favorite track.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty cool one. I love how it's pretty fast paced, and I like those really high kind of chimey notes that it has. It's just a really super cool track that kind of keeps you guessing. Like you kind of think that it's gonna keep looping or it's not really gonna change much, and then it kind of changes the pace of the song or the types of notes they play.
Right.
It's really like a surprise.
Yeah, there's a lot of syncopation, syncopated beats, and I think that 30 seconds in or 25 seconds or something like that, and all of a sudden like the melody starts playing, or this high kind of fluty trumpety thing starts playing, and I was like, oh wow, that's like way cool. I totally dig that. And then it goes away, and then it kind of pops in and out every now and then. It's a little bit longer track than some of the other ones.
Right.
And,
I remember you saying that.
So there's a little bit more time that they have. So instead of just your loop and trying to squash everything into like this 30-second block and then loop it a few times, they had a little bit more freedom to, in this track specifically, a little bit more freedom to elongate those areas, because this castle might be, take you several hours to beat, who knows. And I think it was pretty cool. The staff roll, it was kind of weird because it felt like nighttime music or something to me. It felt like kind of twinkly stars or something like that.
Yeah, to me it was definitely a lot less fun sounding than Dreamland 1 staff roll.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't know, I think it had a really cool progression. Like the song starts out and then it adds more and adds more and adds more, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, to me it had a little bit more where Dreamland 1 was super fun and kind of like, yeah, you did it. And this one was a little bit more like almost sad. Like I felt when I beat it, I was just like, yeah, like the game is over.
Yeah,
and
there is no Kirby 3. There is no Dreamland 3 ever. So no, it was a cool track. You're right though. Like I totally agree with you. It didn't have that same kind of peppy, like let's do it again kind of thing. Like that's how I felt with Dreamland 1. And this didn't have the same thing, but it's still a cool track. I don't know why, but I feel like just in my head right now, I'm seeing like twinkling stars and like a moon, and like it's kind of dark and people standing over a cliff looking at, I don't know, the ocean.
Yeah. And actually when you said how the first one was very fun and kind of like, let's do it again, that actually reminded me that when you beat Dreamland 1, it says like, oh, extra missions, and you get to play through as it harder. Whereas in Dreamland 2, they didn't do that. Yeah. It wasn't like, here, let me make sure that you can play it again.
Well, Dreamland 2 was hard enough.
Yeah.
Like it took me like so much longer to beat than, because we beat both of these games together. Like we kind of made it our mission to like, let's just clear these and get them done. Dreamland 1 like 30 minutes, and this was probably a few hours, but it was a good game. It really was. And I could see that back in the day, if I would have played it, back in the day, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot because of the challenge, and I would have spent a lot of time going through and trying to collect everything. Probably never would have got 100%, but I would have spent a lot of time doing it, or at least attempting it.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think we covered everything about this point.
Awesome. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, so again, we covered Kirby's Dream Land 1 and 2 for the Game Boy, and they're both pretty good games, worth playing for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they're only a couple bucks on the eShop, so if you're interested in the games after hearing this episode, then definitely check them out.
Yeah, I think it was worth, all, $5-6 that we paid for it.
Right.
It's good having them on the system. Anyways, that's the show. Thanks for listening. You can visit us online at pixelatedaudio.com, where we're going to have all the show notes and the tracks from all the songs we played.
And we're also on Twitter and Instagram, and you can subscribe to us on iTunes and Stitcher and leave us a review.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it. Feel free to comment on the articles and the episodes that we post on the website. It'd be pretty cool. We'd like to get some interaction with our listeners. It'd be really, really fun.
Yeah, we love hearing from you guys.
Anyways, the track taking us out is called Kirby's Cabbage Salad. It's an awesome ska kind of hypno track from the remixer YamaYama on OCReMix. Thanks again, and keep an eye out for the next show.